Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well this evening. My name is Shawani Howard Baptiste, and I bring you greetings on behalf of the American Association of Blacks in Higher Education. I serve as your president, and I am so excited and elated to bring a team of educators, activists, and advocates together to discuss a very, very important issue and topic that is pressing our country, our hearts, and our minds. So on behalf of the American Association of Blacks in Higher Education, we want to say welcome. We appreciate the SOS, the Saving Our Sistas Collective, who has come together now for the fourth iteration of topics and conversations to really press us and move us forward. So thank you for joining us. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jasmine Haywood, who will serve as our facilitator and moderator for this evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And on behalf of SOS Collective, we're excited to host this webinar event this evening in collaboration with AABHE. I am going to kick us off in a minute by introducing all of our esteemed panelists here this evening. Before I do that, I am going to read a brief poem that we came across a few days ago that we thought was fitting for this moment in time in history. Also, if social media is your thing, feel free to share with the hashtag SOS Collective throughout the next hour or so. And please do keep, doing some shout outs in the chat about where you're from, and keep the conversation going in the chat. So I wanted to read this poem. It is from a book authored by Harold Green III. The name of the book is called Black Roses: Odes Celebrating Powerful Black Women. And this particular poem is titled Kamala's Smile, an ode to Kamala Harris. You smell like you know it has the power to change the world and moods. A Jamaican and Indian smile. You smile in Baptist and Hindu. You smile like they told you to stop while you're ahead and you refuse to. Success is an assessment of stamina, not speed, but somehow you keep coming in first with the smile of a gold medal winner. You smile like you want people to remember that the truths we hold are not always self-evident. They require a place to call home. Testimonies of tenement, daughter of immigrants. You smile like your roots run as deep as 1,000 oaks. You smile with the warmth of 1,000 coats. Your smile has become a source of hope. You've shown us that superheroes are everywhere. You smile like life ain't fair, but it's worth fighting for. Your name has been etched in the burning sands, in Sanskrit, the lotus. You don't drown in the flood, you grow. You smile like you have greatness in your blood, like you know the power of your past. You smile like you are the first, but will make sure you're not the last. So I will drop the link to that book in the chat, but again, thought that was a nice piece to set the stage and to open us here this evening. So like she mentioned, my name is Jasmine Haywood. I am a strategy director at Lumina Foundation, which is a private philanthropic foundation focused on learning beyond high school and post-secondary education. So first, I'd like to introduce Dr. Zakiya Smith-Ellis. Dr. Ellis she is a principal at Education Council. Before joining Education Council or Ed Council, Zakiya held the role of Chief Policy Advisor to Governor Phil Murray in New Jersey, and she also served as New Jersey's Secretary of Higher Education. Dr. Ellis is a respected public policy leader with deep expertise in both federal and state higher education policy. She's led federal policy development and program implementation at the White House, the U.S. Department of Education, and formerly as my colleague at Lumina Foundation. So next, I want to introduce, and by the way, I'm reading abbreviated bios. We could be here all night introducing these fabulous women. So the bios will be abbreviated, and happy to drop the link to the longer, more impressive version of their bios. So Dr. LaWanda Ward is an associate professor of higher education and as of July 1, the director of the Center for the Study of Higher Education at Penn State. Dr. Ward's research agenda critically analyzed higher education legal issues, including race-conscious admissions, free speech, and academic freedom. For 20 years before joining the professoriate, she served as a student affairs educator in a variety of different roles. She was introduced to higher education administration as a residence life GA and served for 16 years as director of pro bono and public interest at Indiana University McKinney School of Law. She earned a PhD in higher education and student affairs as my classmate at Indiana University, a JD from Indiana University McKinney School of Law, an MS in educational administration from Old Dominion University, and she's got a lot of degrees, y'all, and an MA in political science from Illinois State University, and lastly, a BA in political science from Murray State University. So welcome, Dr. Ward. Next, we've got Dr. Candace Hinton, who is a professor of higher education in the Higher Education Leadership Program in the Educational Leadership Department at Indiana State University, and as July 1, chair of the department as well. Dr. Hinton holds a master's and a PhD in higher education from Indiana University, and a bachelor's of arts degree from Jackson State University. Dr. Hinton's research focuses on African-American women leaders in higher education, multicultural identity development, and institutional support of community-based programs. She is the 2023 recipient of the Association for the Study of Higher Education's CEP Founder Service Award, and also a recipient of the Distinguished Faculty Service Award at Indiana State University. More importantly, Dr. Hinton was elected as the first Black woman on the City Council of Terre Haute, Indiana, this past November. So thank you for being here, Dr. Hinton. And then we have Donna Ratley Washington. Donna is the CEO and founder of Net Rising, a nonprofit company dedicated to eradicating the digital divide. She has excelled in her 20-year leadership journey spanning telecommunications, law, government affairs, advocacy, and nonprofit leadership. Her legal and career in government affairs and community impact includes her time as a law partner at the telecommunications firm of Cole, Ravewood, and Braverman. She was vice president of government affairs and policy at Education Superhighway. And since 2020, Donna has been extensively involved in shaping national digital divide policy, including rulemaking related to broadband equity access and the Deployment Act, the Digital Equity Act, and the Federal Communications Commission's Affordable Connectivity Program. She focuses on using these program funds to help eradicate the digital divide in underconnected communities of color. Donna graduated from Brandeis University, Georgetown University Law School, and attended Université de Haute-Bretagne. And that is the extent of my French, so I'm sure I butchered that. So with that, those are our panelists for this evening, and we're gonna jump right in to our session here. And I wanna start off with you, Zakia, and ask how you're feeling at this particular moment in history to have, you know, a Black woman on the ballot. What does that mean to you, and how do you feel?
Well, I worked for the first Black president in President Obama, and that felt extraordinarily I was so proud to be able to do that. And I didn't expect to have that feeling, but as soon, because all the hoopla and everything, but as soon as it was announced, I had an even greater feeling of, oh my God, because I was one of those people back in 2007 that said, America's never going to elect somebody named Barack Hussein Obama to be president of these United States. And I know some of us say that now about a Black woman. And I just, whenever that happens, I think back to that moment of me being like, oh my God, America could never. And there was such a wave of excitement and exhilaration and push from the grassroots up that lifted him, and he was accepted by millions and millions of people and became the first Black president. And I see that same thing happening now. I see it happening in groups like this. And so I personally, when we talk about representation and all of these things, and no person is perfect and everyone has their flaws and all of those things. But I personally, when that moment happened, when it was like, this is the person that will be running on the Democratic ticket. And I know we still have the official process that's going to happen next week, but this is the person that's going to be on the Democratic ticket as a major candidate for president of these United States of America, in one of the two major parties. We've had Black women run before. My first job was working for Cynthia McKinney in Congress as my hometown congresswoman. So we've had Black women run for president before, but not as part of one of the two main parties that typically dominate American politics. So I just can't express how unexpectedly emotional and proud I feel as a Black woman to be in a place where this is even possible.
Thank you. LaWanda, I know you and Vice President Harris share some special colors. What does this mean for you, and how do you feel about this particular moment?
So yes, Vice President Harris and I, we are members of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I'm a member of almost 30 years. And as a Black woman, similar to what Zakia said, the representation is important. Unfortunately, in the US, she is the first of many firsts. We are behind when you think about other nations who have had women leaders. So on the international stage, we have missed opportunities. So we're long overdue. As we all know, Black women, we labor for this country, even the world. We do that voluntarily, involuntarily. And Vice President Harris, she knows this political landscape, and she's decided to pursue the highest office within it. It's really her excitement that also has me excited. I don't know if people saw the clip where when she spoke to the Obamas, she said something along the lines of, let's have some fun. And so, her excitement and enthusiasm is inspirational to me in a lot of ways. I know that representation is not the same as transformation, but I do think, as with all things, when Black women, as we do, see things that need to change and need to happen, we're typically, geared up to go, and we invite others to come along with us. Black women have been the ones to give this notion of democracy integrity. So I'm looking forward to seeing the things that she will accomplish, and also looking forward to supporting her.
Agreed. Donna, what about you? How are you feeling about all of this?
Oh God, I'm thrilled. I didn't see it coming. I don't know. I was, with the rest of the Democratic sort of, establishment saying, okay, we're going to have this contested primary, we'll have this big, show that we'll put on and we'll see who will, surface. And Kamala came out in like 24 hours, 48 hours and took control of the Democratic Party. And I mean, to see any candidate move with that kind of level of leadership and execution and operational excellence, I was kind of blown away. And so I was blown away by that. And surprised as well. I think everyone has said that at the level of excitement and inspiration and pride and happiness that I personally feel to see someone up there that, is part of our tribe, right? She's right. Somebody's up there who's part of our tribe. And LaWanda said it, identity is not the same thing as transformational politics, but I find it inspiring. I've made a career in, predominantly, white corporate spaces. And so, her struggles for the struggle she's had to make that we've all seen, right, in terms of compromises, survival, and her resilience, right, to see that. I find it so personally inspiring, and I think, it's inspiring for Black women, Black men, women, white men. I think it's inspiring for everyone to see someone who we all know in this country, for a Black woman, not just Black, not just a woman, to rise to this level, tells us all, maybe I can do what I want to do. And I think also, LaWanda, you talked about, that call and the fun. And what I see is she's going to play this off as authentically as she can, right? She's going to bring her authentic self. And I think that's, something I've always tried to do. And I think that's a message for all of us. And I think to see this authentic Black woman is as authentic as she can be, bringing that swag, bringing that, dance, bringing that, that joy, that Black joy that we all know, that woman joy that we all know and see, to bring that, and that's going to carry her forward, and she's going to win. And so, yeah, I feel absolutely confident that she's going to win, and it is more meaningful for me. I was thrilled for Barack, and Michelle, but I wasn't prepared for what it would mean for me as a woman to see a Black woman.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, well said. Dr. Hinton, having just recently run for a public office position, how are you feeling in all of this, about all of this?
Oh, yes. Grace and peace, everybody. First of all, thank you all for inviting me to this marvelous event tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to share anything that I can bring to the table. But yes, I'm so geeked and hyped and excited. I am as excited as I was when Barack Obama was nominated for president. And I was thinking about his speech this morning. There are no red states and no blue states. There's only the United States. And I think we have in Vice President Harris an opportunity to unite more folks than we've been able to do in a long time. We've been almost at a 49-50% split in terms of electing a president for the last 2 or 3 terms. Of course, we were disappointed that Hillary Clinton didn't, bust through the glass ceiling. But I'm excited that it's going to be a Black woman to lead us to this next decade, actually. Her candidacy validates so much of the work that you all have spoken about, that Black women have. We've carried the Democratic Party, we've carried our African American community for centuries, and so I think this is the reward and the notification that we're being honored in this way, that we will lead. A Black woman will lead. I wore a t-shirt yesterday that said, "The Black girl will save the world." And so I just believe that her presidency and this candidacy, as you all said, is just the energy, the spontaneity of it all, and her, like, she's really relaxed and having fun. She's not uptight. She's like, come on, bring it. Like, she's being who she is. She's got Megan Thee Stallion and using Beyonce's music. And so she's not playing respectability politics at all. And so I'm just, thrilled that hopefully I can find a way to volunteer. I get calls and emails every day here in Vigo County, Terre Haute, Indiana, from people saying, how can we volunteer for Kamala Harris campaign? And of course, Indiana is not in place, so they're not really paying attention to us. But we're reaching out to the national office to get some materials here for us to knock on doors and put signs in our yards. And without an organization on the boots on the ground here, we just kind of feel out of the mix. But I'm trying to find a way for all this excitement that we're feeling. Terre Haute is what we call a bellwether county, Vigo County. How Vigo County votes is typically how the rest of the country will go. It turned blue for Barack twice. It was so if we can flip it blue again, and I think we can. It's just so much excitement. I'm seeing fewer and fewer Trump flags are coming down. I would walk my dog and see them everywhere, but I just see more energy now for Kamala Harris. So I'm excited.
I love that. That's a good segue. So this question's specifically for Zakia and Donna. I'll start with you, Zakia. What are your thoughts on ways that we can build or coalesce around political goals that serve Black women across sectors?
I want to thank you for asking that question, because as much as, my divine nine, but not quite the right sorority sister said, representation is not equal transformation. I love you. It's all love. But deltas are in the house too, so we got to represent, and we're going to be, yes, hey, soror. Okay. But representation is not equal transformation. And if Candace Owens was on the ballot, I wouldn't be, excited, right, about this in the same way. So it's not just the representation that we are excited about, it's the representation that comes with a policy action that we believe will be good for Black women, for Black people. And knowing what we want is the first step. I think a lot of times folks can get disappointed after the initial excitement happens because we haven't had the, what is the next step after the person gets elected? And we got to get, elected first, right? That's always the first step. But having a sense of, okay, what are the asks? And the asks don't actually, most people, the behind the scenes folks know this, the asks don't come after the election, the asks come before the election, right? As you're on the campaign trail, you're asking for things. You're saying, what is your platform? What are you going to do? And I really truly believe that even when you are in positions where you are aligned on values, sometimes people need a push. We need a push in the right direction. President Obama needed a push on marriage equality. Some people, not him, but other folks, they needed a push on dreamers. And so we need to have what are our asks as Black women for Black women that we want to push on and that we want to see happen and that we are going to ask for prior to and after and continue to ask about. And so having that kind of list in our minds, whether it's housing policy, whether it's education policy, we are all educators here. We care deeply, I'm sure, about continued college access, support for colleges of all types, HBCUs and other colleges that disproportionately serve Black students and Black women. Those are things that I know I care about when I think about childcare policy and the fact that we don't have any coherent childcare policy in the United States. So there's no, monolithic Black women list, but I would love for us to at least coalesce around some values of things that we want to see and that we will hope and believe that Vice President Harris can deliver on when she becomes President of the United States as well.
Right. So I'll go next, Jasmine. So my area of expertise is the digital divide. So I've been in telecom all my career started in cable, and then it's like, wow, the internet. And so I felt like I was in the right place at the right time. And, so that's my main policy focus, but obviously these issues all intersect, right? Because the reason we want internet is not because we want internet. The reason we want internet is because we want good jobs. The reason we want internet is because we want education, right? We want telemedicine, right? We want healthcare. We want to be able to deliver, all of these benefits that we know are crucial to surviving and thriving in the 21st century. So, for me, the internet is such a key issue, but I think that there are a lot of other issues that diverge, somewhat from the Democratic platform. When you think about, maternal child death, that when you look at these statistics, and that's an issue that is important to Kamala Harris. I mean, Black women, Black babies, the richest Black women, their babies die twice, 2.6 times as the white women, and more than poor white women. And so there are issues like maternal health. There are issues like the digital divide. Just to give you all a little bit of my life, we spent all this money, the BEAD Act, the ARPA Act, all of these huge federal, broadband investments. I don't want to tell you the bad news, but the bad news is like everything else in this country, the majority of that money is going to connect rural America, and it is going to connect white Americans. 3 times as many Black households in urban areas are offline than in rural areas, right? Who did the infrastructure bill? The infrastructure bill was done by 11 senators, and that was Sinema, Manchin. Right, we weren't represented. And so, unfortunately, the vast majority of all of this broadband funding is going to connect rural America and cannot be used to connect and provide affordable broadband in urban communities. We just saw the demise of the ACP, the Affordable Connectivity Program, that gave 23 million households $30 a month to get internet. 40% of those households that were getting that were Black and Latino. That went away. So in February, that went away. May was the last month. So we desperately need, a Black woman, a person who these issues are front and center for, to be elected. And, I think the main way we come together is we shed light on these issues. Like, what is it? Like, really? So we spend all this money. How many Black people did get connected? Are they connected? How is the education improved? How is the health access to telemedicine improved? And so that's the work that, I'm doing, and, organizations like the Urban League, the NAACP, are doing a good job, and we just need to do more. Because, John Lewis, before he passed, said, internet connectivity, it was the civil rights issue for the 21st century, and it is. So
Thank you. My next question I want to direct to you first, Candace, and then you, Lawanda. We've seen a lot in the media the past few weeks. One of the things that has been circulated is around this idea of the glass cliff. And so research has shown that Black women are often hired or promoted to leadership roles at organizations. And I know we see this in our field of higher education, specifically in colleges and universities, that they're promoted to leadership roles during times of crisis, with the expectation that they will fix all of the things. And the task can be so daunting that it quickly leads to burnout or even failure, because oftentimes, we're not set up for success when we step into these roles. So I'm wondering if this phenomena of the glass cliff for Black women, is that something that you've seen, Candace, and or seen or experienced? What are your thoughts on that more broadly, and what are your thoughts on that in relation to Vice President Harris? Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you. There's a song by Betty Wright. I don't know if y'all, nobody's on here old enough to know Betty Wright, but Betty Wright had a song called Clean Up Woman. A cleanup woman is a woman who gets all the love we girls leave behind. The reason I know so much about it is because she picked up a man of mine. Jumping slick was my ruin, because I found out all I was doing was making it easy for the cleanup woman. So we are often those women who have to clean up. Somebody said it, I think Don, somebody said we come clean up behind a mess. While Joe Biden has not left the country in a mess, he has actually moved. He's moved us in policy places that are extremely progressive in many ways. But now Kamala has to be that person to unite our party, and she will need the support of Black women. Like sometimes we leave each other hanging, or we've become too critical of each other once we're in those leadership positions. We can't do it all. She won't be able to do it all, and she can't do it by herself. As many of you said, and as I've looked in the chat, we do need to provide a manifest, a list of things that we want to see done. Oftentimes we get folks elected and we don't hold them accountable. But I believe that that Vice President Harris will be President Harris and will need our support, that she is not just a cleanup woman, but that she can move us and progress us as a nation and the world, that we can become the leaders, that we can continue our democracy, that we can teach democracy all over the world. Democracy as it really should be handled. That there's a notion of equity in our country. She will be a representative of what it means to have a democratic process, that the best person, the best qualified person will be the leader. And so we have to stand behind her and support her. I did a backpack giveaway this past weekend, and I did it in a public housing development. I only had 155 backpacks. And so I did it in the housing development expecting, which was probably terrible for me to do a stereotype, I was expecting to be serving mostly Black people and Black children. But 85% of the folks that we served that day were white people, very, very, very poor white folks. And we did voter registration as we were doing those backpacks. And we were, talking to people about their own interests. Very, very poor people have no idea of what they need or how they can live better. They don't know that through Project 2025, that housing and urban development, that they may lose their status and not have access to some of the public housing that's available. So those are the things that we have to keep in the forefront, not just for Black women, but for poor people who see themselves as voiceless, and children who will be struggling because their parents are not engaged. And so we have to keep in mind the youth of our communities and keep those things and support Vice President, soon to be President Harris, as she builds a new America.
I love that. LaWanda, you've had experience in both, administration and in law schools, and now experience in the academy as an associate professor. What are your thoughts on that phenomena of the glass cliff, and how you've seen it play out, and your thoughts about it in relation to Kamala?
I agree with Dr. Hinton, and I do know Betty Wright. I think a lot of us know Betty Wright. This question makes me think about, Zora Neale Hurston said, Black women are the mules of the world. And so this whole notion of the glass cliff yes, we are invited or voluntold to go into spaces to put out fires, make a way out of no way. It's not right. It's never been right yet. Black women, we have been socialized to take up the call, so we do take it up. I think in terms of thinking about politics, which I have a BA and MA in, so around this time I get to kind of think about this notion of democracy. And like I said, I believe Black women have really given integrity to that concept. And I see someone put in the chat about pretty much the conflict in Gaza. I think for Vice President Harris, that I haven't seen her address or talk about it. I think as we all know, there's a reason for that. The US has never had clean hands. Even if you look into former President Obama's administration, he authorized, I think it was like 540 drone strikes that killed innocent people in various international countries. But we normally don't talk about that, or I should say, depends on the circle that you're in. Some people don't talk about that as part of his legacy. I'm saying that to say there will be things that she will likely have to continue doing in that role. And again, I haven't seen her address thoughts, and I know she spoke to the Zetas in Indianapolis, so she wasn't in DC when what's his name?
She did meet with him, and I will talk about it after that, but she
she did? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Because I do think a lot of people are expecting her to take a stand on it in ways that I think reflects democracy. And again, this notion of, the humane thing to do. And hopefully she will do that. But I think we have to prepare ourselves if she doesn't. If she more so focuses on, and I see people put in the group, which I have heard her talk about, our health care, about gun right legislation. I think some of the things in the US that have been an issue, and they're definitely an issue, that might be where she put her energy. So again, Black women do a lot. We expect them to do a lot. I invite people to manage expectations and give the list of what you would like to see happen. So I think it has to be a both and with that.
Yeah, I want to have you follow up, Zakia, and maybe add an unscripted question to go along with that, given what you just brought up, LaWanda. What are you all's thoughts around how to hold maybe some of those tensions, right? When how to hold that, and maybe some of the disagreements we might have with things she's said or did, that and some of that may and may not be true, right? Because it's important to fact check what you think she's done in her past. But I know the way that I feel is I'm supporting her full stop moving forward. But how do you grapple with it if you're someone that has that tension? I'll go ahead, Zakia.
Yeah, I think this is a fantastic thing to bring up, and I want to be really real and honest. And I was trying to read, some of the comments. And one of the things that we know is that let me take this out of just Kamala and to your question about Black women in leadership and the things that are put on them. If you've ever been in a position of leadership, you know that you then carry all of the grievances of that position that predated you. You carry all of the policies of that organization, even those that you may disagree with and that you are trying to change. And so she will be in that position. With the situation in Gaza, it was interesting because I was actually looking for how will she talk about this? This is a really difficult position. You are currently vice president. You report to the president who sets the policy. And now you are running for president. in which case you need to distinguish yourself. And this is an issue that folks are looking to you to have a different position. How do you sit in that moment? What she did was she said in a way that was much more, I think I looked at the news outlets and there's some of this that is gendered and whatnot, but they said she was more compassionate in her remarks about Gazan citizens. So the policy position, she didn't show any daylight, say that there would be a difference, but the way she spoke about the suffering of the Palestinian people was felt more, it just came across in a different way. She literally said, we will not be silent about the suffering in Gaza, and that it is a ceasefire must happen. Again, the actual policy is not different. I think about this in many ways. I don't know if any of you follow education policy, but I think about this often with Michelle Rhee, who was superintendent of DC public schools, and she was on Time magazine with a broomstick to clean it up. And there was Kaya Henderson, who was a Black woman who then was her deputy, but became superintendent after her. And the policies actually weren't that different, but Kaya Henderson went to communities. She listened to them before talking about closing schools. She engaged with that. Like, there was just a difference in approach. And I'm not saying the policy shouldn't be different, but what I am saying is anyone who has been in a position of leadership knows the tension that creates, and knows that there's a way that you can engage with people in a humanistic way that shows that you value, that shows your values. That she is, I see that in some of what she's doing. And a lot of the things I think about as a prosecutor, your job is to enforce the laws, even if you disagree with the laws many times. And she found very creative ways to, I thought, be compassionate, to find ways to embrace restorative justice. But at the same time, I've been in a state government where it's like, wait, I started this job yesterday and I already got 3 lawsuits. How do I have 3 lawsuits? I haven't done anything. It's like, well, because somebody sued the person before you and now you're the new person. So guess what? You're being sued. So I don't want it to be a reason to back off the criticisms, because I think, again, everybody needs that push. Even the best of us need to be pushed. None of us is perfect. And it's good to have that push. I've been in those positions where I want you to be pushing, because it makes it easier for me to go if I can say, oh, well, they're gonna raise hell if I don't do this, like it's good to have the push. But at the same time, as people and as fellow Black women who are leaders, to understand the challenges and not to place, someone put in the chat, unrealistic expectations, because even at the end, if she's extraordinarily successful, she will not have solved all the problems of Black America or Black women. It doesn't mean we don't keep fighting and keep pushing, but it just means that the issues that we face are so great that no one person is going to be our savior.
Yeah, and she's not perfect, like someone put in the chat, and the alternative, that ain't it, right? So we need to put the pedal to the metal for Vice President Harris, right, to win this thing. Let's go really quickly to you, Donna, and then we're gonna shift over to one of the questions in the Q&A, and then we're gonna wrap us up in the next 12 minutes or so.
I don't, everybody kind of said it, but I guess what I'd like to add is just, she's not the president. I said she's one of our tribe, but she's not, the president of Black women. She's not the president of Black people. She's not the president of Democrats, right? She's, I think you said it, Candace, what Barack said of these United States, and, the kind of compromises that any politician has to have, and certainly, a Black woman. But when you look back, at her record, I mean, back in 2019, back when she was campaigning, I mean, in the Senate, I mean, look it up. I mean, she was the second most progressive vote behind Bernie Sanders in the Senate, right? And when you look at, I put in the chat, the criminal justice reform legislation. And then when you even look back at her record as a prosecutor, and, I've got people in my family who, are like, it's a very difficult issue, right? If not as difficult as Gaza. But even that record also shows sort of her progressive tendencies and the compromises that she made. And so we see that, and no, she's not a perfect candidate. She would not be elected if she only address the issues that were important and critical to Black women or Black people. But what I believe, and I think her record shows, is a commitment to Black people and Black women and the issues that impact us. And I believe that as president, she will bring those forward, right? Because that's what we all do, right? As soon as we get in a position of power and we can hire somebody and we can raise somebody up, we try, right? Within the realities that we exist. And I think that's what is what we'll see from her.
Absolutely.
But I like this agenda. We need to come up, right? This is what we want. We're gonna all get out here, right? And vote for you and mobilize. And this is what we want. This is what we need.
Yes. So we've got two similar questions in the chat. We're gonna shift to talking about action. How do we do this thing? And where and with whom? So I'm gonna combine two questions here around now what from Dr. Chayla Davidson. Hi, Chayla. Now, what do we do to get her elected? How do we get involved today? How can we best support Kamala's campaign in addition to financial support? So I'll just kick us off. I know, and everyone here probably already knows this. They've got the Win with Black Women website campaign, Instagram page, Twitter page, all of that. I know that that's garnered a big following over the past few weeks. Although they've been meeting and they formed in 2020. But I'm gonna kick that over to you, Candace. What are your thoughts on actions that we can do to, post up, as Dr. Robin Hughes says, to make sure that this happens?
Yeah. 2012 was the last time that Black people really voted and mobilized and registered. We had a dip. We didn't show up to the polls in 2016. We showed up a little more in 2020. So we are on the incline. It dipped again in 2022 for the midterm. But we have to make sure that we are registering people. We have we have so many eligible Black voters, that is over the age of 18, who are not convicted felons. In some states, you can still vote if you've served your time. But however, we have to register people to vote. We got to knock on doors, even if we're not volunteering, particularly for the Harris campaign. Voter registration is crucial. And then getting the vote out, making phone calls, get a list from your whatever party affiliation you are affiliated with. I'm a Democrat, so I'll get a list from my Democratic chair and the state chair of people who are potential and who have not voted in the last two elections, to make sure that they are still registered. We just got to get folks registered and mobilized the same way we did. Can't be scared to knock on doors. I knocked on so many doors of just random people in a systematic way, but we can't have the fear of being, not knocking on doors. If you do have a fear, make phone calls, get on a phone bank, donate money. Money is crucial to any campaign. Small donations, they add up. We got to give some money, and we got to give some time to this campaign. Got to mobilize, particularly the Black and Latino vote. If we can coalesce around those two communities, in fact, there are if we do all the minoritized populations in the country, we are around 36 to 40% of minoritized folks. If we vote as a voting bloc, and then we get the white dudes, the white dudes who support Harris, we got this thing on lock. But we have to get those communities, and it's difficult in many of the Latino communities because of government IDs are expired, or they have difficulty getting an ID. But they are citizens, but they still have difficulty. That community in particular has difficulty getting registered to vote because of the voter ID laws.
You mentioned Black folks overall, but Black men historically have not shown. So help get people registered to vote. And when you go to vote, find a Black man and bring him with you and make sure he's voting too. So I think, his looking at the data historically, that's important too. Any other thoughts in addition to what Candace said from anyone on taking some action?
I just like, the same thing we did for Barack. I live in Washington, D.C. It's going to go for Kamala. So, we went to Pennsylvania, we went to Virginia, right? My husband went down to South Carolina and, go where it's going to matter, right? So like my 80-year-old mother and I were up in Pennsylvania, knocking on doors because of how crucial that is. And so, the adjacency, go where, if you have access, go, if you live close to those swing states, go to one, go.
And if you don't know how to sign up, if you go to KamalaHarris.com, they have a thing there. The first thing they're gonna ask you to do is donate. But if you already donated, or you can also click the little X and you can just go to sign up and they will contact you. And you'll get a lot of text messages and all that stuff, but they're gonna ask you, where's this, where's that? You can also just find your local field office and go on a Saturday and say, hey, I'm here to help. That, if you don't know where it is, there's typically one somewhere near you. And if you really, really down for the cause and you're ready to like lay it all the line, they got like 100 jobs on their website. Like your resume in there and your information, from video creator to, digital tech person to voter suppression lookout. So there are many, many ways, and folks are putting great links in the chat as well to just connect.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna close us out with a little lightning round with one.
Jasmine, one more thing.
Oh, go ahead.
Many of us are on college campuses. We need to mobilize students to get registered either in the community that they're in, or make sure they get their absentee ballots to vote in their hometown, like right away, as soon as they get to campus. I don't know if there is a Young Democrats or some kind of justice movement on campus. The Democracy Project is on most campuses. If they can put some kind of little flyer in students' packets or something so that they can get registered right away.
Yes, excellent point. Because we need those college students to show up. We're gonna close out with a lightning round. I've got one last question for our 4 panelists. And then we will close us out for the evening. So I'll start with you, Lawanda. Over the next 95 or so days, I forget how many exact days we're at. Us as Black women will have to navigate both inside and outside the workplace, a contentious political environment where we are taking in the news, the media, the good and the bad, where we are mobilizing to act, as we've just talked about here this evening. What is your advice to all of us to thrive, to not just survive, but to thrive until November?
I think we have to protect our mental health and peace vigilantly. Yes. Try not to entertain conversations that aren't nuanced with people. As we said, there should be critique, there ought to be critique, and there ought to be conversations that are nuanced about things with realistic expectations about Vice President Harris. As Black women, people see us, they can't get to her. And so, be careful and monitor your surroundings, be aware, protect yourself in ways that are comfortable for you. And then also, do your best to make decisions that are right for you, because there will be a lot of information coming, and everyone doesn't mean us as Black women well, which we know that. So just be vigilant and protective of your peace and your mental health.
I love that. What about you, Donna? You're on deck, Candace. What are your thoughts, Donna?
I loved what LaWanda said. I mean, because I think, we all are quick to want to, voice our, happiness, support, and if challenged, defend, and we can get into conversations that where the only point really is for the other person to get their anger and their fears out, because they can't get it to Kamala, right? And so we're there, and so protecting our, just as you said, protecting your mental health, protecting your livelihood, means to me, one, being authentic that you support her, but not entering into conversations and discussions that really the only point is for folks to kind of get their anger, their fear out through those discussions with you, which I think we've all been a part of those conversations, too many times. And so, party with the people, who are excited, have those conversations. That's why these kinds of forums are so important now, so getting together with like-minded folks, so we can express those opinions and have those nuanced conversations. To me, that's going to get us through to victory, right? So.
Thank you. Your thoughts, Candace?
Yes, the expectation is that as Black women, we are for Kamala Harris. And I think that the folks on this call and very vastly, most Black women, I can confidently say will be supporting Kamala Harris. I would say, equip yourself with 4 or 5 talking points that come directly from Kamala Harris. Don't argue with fools. Don't argue on social media, post positive stuff about what's happening if you use social media in those ways. But then guard your heart and your mind, and the peace that surpasses all understanding will do that for you. And just understand that we have a mandate, and we're on a mission. And so we have to stay healthy and whole mentally and physically to run to the end of these 98 days that we have left to get Kamala in office. And then our Vice President Harris, she's not my best friend. I should have no business calling her Kamala. But we just feel like she's our sister. And we're just, you have to convey to, your friends and family the importance of this. And let them know that if they say voting doesn't change anything, you say, okay, but nothing is going to change if you don't do anything. So keep that in mind.
And do you want to finish us out, Zakia? Your
I
advice?
think all of my sisters have said, guard your peace, take care of your physical and mental health as a primary. We often sacrifice our physical and mental health in support of what we believe is a greater good. And the best good is to have that for yourself. And then you can be in a place where you can be of service to others. So just remember that. I also block people on social media, and I unfollow and I mute people. And if you got that cousin or that friend from high school that keeps, just don't have that in your space. Mute it, block it, rebuke it, just get it out of your, like it's not edifying you. Just go ahead and mute that for the next 100 days at least.
I support that, absolutely. Protect your peace, and take care of yourself and do what you got to do to stay in the fight, to show up, right? So important. Well, I want to thank all of our wonderful panelists for joining us this evening. Thank you, ladies. It's been great being in community with you. Thank you again to AABHE for collaborating with us on this webinar and past webinars. I dropped a link in the chat for a very brief survey. I'm going to put it there again. I promise you it will take you 2 minutes at most. Would love if you could complete that, and stay tuned for the conversation. And I look forward to being in contact with all of you.